Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Club program. I'm your host, Seher Gattas, founder, CEO of Flawless Unbound. And today with us, we have a very special guest, Ashley, from, you guessed it, HubSpot. But before I go there and introduce Ashley, I just want to remind all our audience, we created the Breakthrough Club program to make sure that we're adding value to our community and our industry. So we try our best to interview leaders in organizations who are actually making change so that they can share with us lesson learned, playbooks, best practice on how we can help you grow your company. Usually our audience are company from $10 million to $150 million. I know it's a big range, but the reason why we're doing this because we see that there's some matching in playbooks when it comes to sales and marketing alignment. But enough introduction, let's go now to our special guest today. Ashley, how are you doing today?
I am great, Seher. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for giving us the time. I know you're a very busy person inside of HubSpot, but for the sake of our audience, would you do a formal introduction? We want to know more about Ashley, and of course, we're excited to know more about HubSpot.
Yeah, of course. So, as mentioned a couple times, my name is Ashley. I am formally the program manager for partner development at HubSpot. I've been in that role for about a year and a half, and I'm the person who founded that role. So it's something new that I created the company to help evolve our partner program. I sit on our global partner strategy and operations business unit, and I am working cross-functionally with a lot of different teams, a lot of different projects, everything from product launches to internal strategy and annual planning. And so I get to see all sides of the business, not just from the eyes of HubSpotters, but also through the eyes of our partners and customers.
Beautiful. And I know we got introduced almost a year and a half ago as Flawless Unbound. We're part of the advanced program with HubSpot when it comes to CRM implementation and also a platinum partner. And I had the pleasure of kind of seeing you kind of work and build this kind of full kind of go-to-market model, if I may say. So before HubSpot, what other organizations have you worked with, and exposures you've been?
Yeah, so before HubSpot, I had a full 7 years with a bone marrow donor center called DKMS. That was a global bone marrow donor center. I worked with cancer patients, managed large corporate partnerships, hospital partnerships, as well as community development and volunteer development. So that role took up really the first part of my career. During that program, I helped them build a global program. I also helped manage their entire New England region for both patients, communities, and hospitals, as well as a ton of fundraising, a ton of just grassroots, boots on the ground, nonprofit work. It was really rewarding, really exciting, and I took a lot away from that as well.
That's amazing. And I can see a little bit of repeated patterns here. You're trying to bring strategic partnership. So I can see that you're taking this kind of skill set and experience with you into a much larger organization like HubSpot. So for some of the audience today, shame on you, by the way, if you don't know who's HubSpot, but for some of the audience today who doesn't know who's HubSpot, can you give us a full kind of very high level introduction of who's HubSpot, how long have they been in the business, and what they're all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So HubSpot is a global software company. Let's see, we went public in 2014. We've been around since 2009, and we have gone from being a marketing automation software company to a full platform suite, which includes marketing automation, CRM, customer service, as well as CMS and web development. So we've expanded a ton. When I started at HubSpot, about 4.5 years ago, we just had a marketing software in the start of our CRM. So it's been incredible to see the expansion that has happened. The other thing I'll mention is that when I started, HubSpot was, I think we had 2 global offices, and now we have 9 plus our entire remote workforce. So it's just been incredible to be part of a company that has grown so rapidly and has innovated in the tech space so rapidly as well.
Absolutely. And we can see HubSpot, you guys are in the Gartner quadrant. You're kind of really kind of trending up on the right quadrant as well. And there's a lot of course, competition in the marketplace, and see the value. I know we have been learning a lot from you guys almost in the last 2 years. we did maybe 120 implementation of HubSpot CRM for mid-sized organizations. So clearly you guys are doing something right, because we see our clients, they're happy with the platform. And definitely, I know you guys are always announcing new feature function to the platform. So now I would like to maybe drill deeper into your experience more as a leader, because I can see your job role. It's not like the traditional job role. You're really kind of touching different business units, and you're kind of engaging and bridging between a large organization like HubSpot, which having a lot of business units, and also engaging with outside organizations like a partner community and things like that. How does a day in the life of Ashley kind of work?
Yeah, so the term I always use when people ask me this question is controlled chaos. It is madness on the internal side. And one of the jokes I use with my team is you need to present a gorgeous front end user experience when people work with you, even if your back end is spreadsheets and even if your back end is entirely manual. So that's a lot of what my day-to-day is like. To get into some of the nitty-gritty though, it's everything from true strategic think time. In fact, I didn't even think before we got on this call. You have my like crazy whiteboard in the background. And
That's awesome.
then, you know, just back-to-back meetings where those meetings are productive. And what I'm doing is helping these different cross-functional teams really understand different business perspectives, and then also understand how to position whatever it is that they're trying to change or innovate on across our internal audiences and stakeholders, but also to our outward facing community, like our partners and our customers.
And that might come with its own challenges too, because maybe a partner member might have an agenda, but the internal line of business might have a different agenda. So I can see you more, you're trying to map both agenda in a way to make it a win-win situation. So it's not like a walk in the park, clearly. So with that in mind, when you're kind of, let's say, prepping for a meeting, and you know maybe there's different stakeholders and really from internal and external, is there like a a process you go through to kind of to prep properly for meetings like that to ensure it's well time used for those meetings?
Absolutely. So there are two core types of meetings in my day to day. One is those one-to-one conversations where I'm really fact gathering and I'm trying to understand not just the perspective of those individuals, but what's important to them, as well as the language they speak, so to speak. So is there certain terminology or certain ways that they talk about topics, as well as what angle they tend to problem solve from? Because the way that we approach challenges and problems could be very different. And a lot of times the solution that we're all working towards will get lost in the way we're talking about the problem. And so those one-on-one conversations, the way I prepare for them is actually setting up an open agenda framework where I am, and you've heard me say this a tons of hair, so forgive me, but where I'm always asking them what's top of mind and really starting from their perspective and sort of working through the conversation from there. So one-to-one meetings is one chunk. The other is cross-functional sort of working group meetings or stakeholder meetings. For that, I take a much more structured approach. So the first thing that I do, and this is going to sound wild, is I'm a big fan of Google Slides. I keep everything in a deck format. Of course, I might have my spreadsheet or my project management tool in the background, but I use slides because they serve multiple purposes. So in working group meetings, they can be a great tool to hold everyone accountable in a visible format. You can leave comments in there, and then you can easily turn those slides into like executive presentations, for example. So what that allows you to do is truly be representative of all the different voices that were in those meetings, hold everyone accountable and keep things tracked in a single space, and then save you as the leaders some time where you can easily just shave down that content or zoom it up to the level that you need it to be when you need to take that idea and present it to your stakeholders across the board.
That's amazing. And especially me personally, I was just in a meeting with you 2 hours ago and you did exactly the same thing on me. So I appreciate that. And it actually held me accountable, and I was able to, in maybe the half an hour before the meeting, to contribute as much as I can. So I felt that the meeting was very organized, even though this meeting was cross-functional. There was
Yep.
internal teams, there were external teams, and there was even teams from different agencies speaking to you at the same time. And I think it was very productive. So I'm a believer, because I already I'm kind of part of your system, and I can see it working. And I think one of the things that we have seen, and I know a lot of our audience would be CEO, founders of organizations, or maybe VP sales and VP marketing, that they will somehow in their day, they will need to cross-function and collaborate with different stakeholders inside or outside. So I'm glad that we're at least sharing some of the tools you're using as well. So tell me, what excites you each day working at HubSpot? Besides that, HubSpot is an awesome organization, but what really excites you kind of working in an organization like this?
Yeah. Well, one, you said it, HubSpot's a great company, and especially this year, it's been so telling how much they care about their employees and also their customers and our partners. You know, the business has really gone above and beyond, and our leadership has been impeccable from a pandemic standpoint. So that's exciting to know that I have security and know that I have leaders who support me. But in terms of the actual work, what excites me the most is how much transparency I get from my teams, so that we can truly impact our business and truly drive change across the business. That in and of itself is so exciting. I feel like so many people in their careers, regardless of being an individual contributor or a CEO, get into this monotonous pattern where the work isn't exciting anymore and it doesn't feel challenging. I'd say I'm very fortunate where at HubSpot, I'm encouraged to challenge the status quo. I'm encouraged to break the model, and we'll be heard if the solutions that we can come up with are something that's truly going to influence the business in a positive way. And so that's just incredibly motivating and exciting.
Interesting. So you feel very empowered by the leadership team to say, hey, we're coming with this kind of new pilot, but if it worked, let's now move it from a pilot phase to a full program. And I think you've been successful doing this maybe 2 or 3 times already. And I was a part of a group that I think we were engaged in that, which is awesome. So my next then question to you is, what can be maybe one of the obstacles maybe you would face in scenarios like that?
Wow. Okay. So the first thing I'll say is there's so many, and they vary based on your personality. So one of the hardest challenges in taking on this kind of leadership role at a global company is recognizing that your style is not everyone else's style, and your entire job is to kind of mold yourself to fit how other people like to work, and go from there. So the first thing I'll say is I have to be type A behind the scenes and type B when I face other people, like very flexible, very free-spirited, very open. But behind the scenes, I have to then take everything people tell me and channel it into an incredibly organized plan and strategy. That comes with a lot of really interesting learning experiences. So one I can speak to that I've been going through recently, actually, is this idea of starting from how people like to collaborate. So this is one that I've learned the hard way recently, is that the way I think of collaboration is in a very organized, structured, like let's always have productive meetings kind of framework. And what I learned is that there are a lot of people, particularly in the marketing or the content or more of that creative space, less operational, more creative space, who love to do like the whiteboarding, the sticky noting together. I thought that whiteboarding and sticky noting was like those one-on-one meetings, those off the cliff conversations. And what I did was compile them into sort of a proposed option that we could then tear apart. And a lot of those more creative cross-functional team members felt like we skipped a step So in my mind, we already did it. In their mind, we skipped it, and it caused some conflict. But at the end of the day, we were able to easily go back and do that whiteboarding session together as a group. And that's something I've been taking away. So that's just an example. It's really the style stepping. There's also this idea of getting cross-functional buy-in and how everyone gets bought in different ways. Some people just want to be told, other people want to be part of the innovative process, and really understanding who those different personas are within your business.
That's amazing. So it's more of the collision that creates infusion into building another way of collaboration. And I like also how you're explaining it, because that's kind of, you're really explaining the left mind versus the right mind, and how they're kind of trying to work together, like the creative team versus the operational team, and all those kind of things. So, and you did mention this before, Ashley, like how you can hold people accountable, especially that they're busy in their day and stuff like that. So let me ask you then a question from your perspective, from your department perspective. What kind of KPIs would you hold yourself to delivering on versus maybe other divisions?
Absolutely. So I don't think we talked about this yet. So I came from a sales role at HubSpot before taking on, well, I did multiple projects within my sales role, but I came from the sales community, which if you are a sales leader listening in, you know, your teams have quotas, you have hard numbers you have to hit, you have a time frame you have to hit those by, and you want your teams overachieving because that's revenue for your business and helps your business grow. So that's the world I came from at HubSpot. And when I stepped into more of this experimental pilot type leadership role, all of a sudden I realized that those deadlines were all arbitrary. Like those things didn't exist anymore. And so one of the first things I implemented across my cross-functional teams is anytime we start a new project or anytime we start to innovate on a program, we set a clear deadline and a why we chose that deadline. And then we determine what things we want to change within the business. So for example, some of our KPIs might be the number of partners in the community who we actually get involved and excited about this new program and how that's going to contribute to a product launch, for example. So when I think about KPIs in these types of roles, your KPIs are less set in stone because to most of the business, they don't know you exist yet. And your KPIs are really about holding yourselves accountable to taking this from being a pilot or whatever project it is to being relevant and impactful in the business, which means you have to figure out how to, I guess the way I would say this is you'd have to start backwards, figure out what KPIs are important to those cross-functional teams, and then build KPIs for your own project that clearly demonstrate how what your work, the work you're doing is going to support and elevate the other cross-functional teams. I don't know if that made sense.
Oh, amazing. Makes perfect sense. I love it, because then you're showing to me and to the audience that you have a kind of a backward process, like backward engineering to, I know that this is the KPI for this division, but then I need to create my own KPI internally. And then while I'm doing all of that, I need to show the big machine, and here's the ROI, really why we're doing this. So that makes perfect sense. And I think we are part of this right now. Would it be okay that I can share with the audience what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know right now, like, you know, as part of Flawless Unbound and HubSpot, we're building an amazing sales training for maybe 300 agencies worldwide to kind of prep them to sell up market and position themselves up market, especially coming with new platforms or enhanced platforms from HubSpot when it comes to CRM, CMS, marketing automations, and other things. So I'm learning with you as we're going through the process of how you guys are doing it internally as well, and connecting with that. So I can see my KPI clearly, even though I'm from outside the organization, but I can see the value that this will bring to the global community of all the HubSpot ecosystem worldwide, which is amazing. It's a great learning for me personally as well. So is that correct as an example for how you guys are doing it and measuring it?
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to look at it. So I'm sort of a supporter and an advocate in that cross-functional group, and I know what their KPIs are. We've even done things, as you know, to help think about, okay, what KPIs could impact our partners' businesses, and how can we make sure they're seeing ROI from this as well? And our guest speakers, like, how do we make sure they see ROI through this process? And so you're spot on. It's all about taking, I'd say my big theme is perspectives. Like, it's all about
Mhm.
taking those different perspectives when you're in a highly cross-functional setting, and being able to translate that into metrics and goals that drive not just your project forward, but elevate those cross-functional teams as a whole.
I'm very impressed with what you're doing, Ashley, and I'll tell you why. Because of all the audience who are listening right now, I can tell you that 20 to 30% of the audience, they have a channel organization. So I'll give you an example. We work with a lot of manufacturing, and manufacturing, they have distribution. So there is a very close relationship between the manufacturing, like if I'm an essential manufacturing organization, I need to grow through channel. So their channel is distribution, disti. So I would love whoever is listening today to just take some of what Ashley is doing from a HubSpot perspective. You're really enabling the channel to let them do more, which means they're growing, HubSpot is growing, the customer is getting more value. So if I can take that global playbook that you're building inside of HubSpot and maybe apply it on a smaller scale for an organization like manufacturing, building for the distribution channel, or maybe you're a SaaS-based company right now and you have been very successful selling direct, but maybe you want to scale globally. So you want to scale through franchise or through partners. That can be maybe some of the playbooks that you guys are doing right now, Ashley and team, inside of HubSpot. Maybe you can take some of that and apply it for your organization. In my mind, I can see it very well connected. And instead of maybe other smaller organization trying to rebuild the ocean, maybe they can learn from the conversation today and apply some of it um, for their, let's say, next 90 days, 180 days for them to grow the company.
Yeah, you brought up one of my favorite topics, which is scalability. Because for me, scalability really means efficiency, and it means efficiency at a high quality. And so when I think about everything I do in my day to day with the business, it might start off very manually, but our goal is to reach a point where I am scaling myself out of my current position, right? I want to hit a point where we are scaling with the quality that we need, and the type of efficiencies we need in order to maintain that quality. And so when I think about, I love talking to manufacturing companies. They're one of my favorite divisions. One, manufacturing is so important in our global economy, and two, their business models are incredibly dynamic. And when you talk about a distribution model, I think one of the pieces that gets lost in the conversation is that scalability component. It's not just scaling through adding more distributors to your, your Rolodex, basically. It's also about scaling how you enable and empower those distributors to do more within their businesses. And like I said, scalability is often the first thing everyone talks about, but the last thing anyone plans for. And so when you're building out these different cross-functional teams, one of the things I always tell my team and always encourage other teams to do is to think as though you won't have a job in 6 months, won't have a job in a year, not because you're going to get fired, but because you've done such a great job at what you're doing that they don't need you to do it manually anymore. And you've empowered your audience and empowered your teams to sort of do that on their own and do it at a higher velocity, a larger scale, and with the standard of excellence and high quality that is expected in your industry.
I'm taking notes. I'm learning, and I love what you're sharing right now. Because in my mind, like I'm learning something new today. Because scaling to me was, hey, how can I add more logos, or how can I add extra nodes to my relationship? What you're saying is, sure, you can do that, but hey, how about also you think about bringing efficiency? That while you're adding a new logo or a new node, or let's say a new distributor to your manufacturing operation, how can you empower this single node to actually be very successful, that maybe you only need 20 of them, versus 500, and then more problems are happening. And then as soon as you're successful getting those 20 nodes, and they're doing so well, then now you build a process that's repeated, so efficiency comes in, then you apply the process, and then you really can scale up from there. So
Yep.
the conversation, like I'm that's amazing. I'm just taking notes, and I hope the audience are taking notes today as well. And we're learning a lot from this conversation. Thank you for that. Now, here's another question that we usually kind of get from clients all the time. So everybody now, we're in COVID kind of zone right now, and there's this kind of new world that we're stepping into. That we all know now, COVID is kind of an accelerator for us to really bring digital transformation, and especially maybe for organizations and industry that maybe they were shy away from really change, and were taking their time, maybe 3 to 5 years, because everything is working fine. So what would you say for those kind of industries or those organizations, especially now after COVID, during COVID, and kind of in the new world that we'll be stepping into comes 2020?
So the first thing that popped into my head, and I have friends that are teachers, they're in the education space. And one of the things I hear all of the time is, my staff is too old to embrace technology. My team is not of the age to tackle these new systems and new ways of working. And the first thing I'll say, and maybe it's a little controversial for me to say it this way, but that's who I am. Like, shame on you guys. Like, have way more faith and trust in your teams and your employees to embrace change. And I think you said at the beginning of the conversation, Sahar, like, it's so important that teams feel empowered from leadership. And if you are an executive or a leader at your company who is also one of those people who has really struggled with the change and the pivot, I would say start there, start from within, and start to tackle some of those new technologies. Try out a project management tool, try out different concepts for giving your teams more autonomy and a little less micromanaging, because when you're remote, that's the reality. Learn how to use an iPad to whiteboard on Zoom. That's been one of my new things teaching HubSpotters how to do, is how to actually have whiteboard sessions remotely. And it can always start small. Maybe you start with using a tool like Slack to get everyone out of these formal emails and learn how to converse in an informal chat setting. Or maybe it is something like introducing a Zoom whiteboard session where someone is in charge of writing things down. I'd say COVID has been a really scary time for a lot of people. And the piece that I'm finding, even I've struggled with, is maintaining that connection and collaboration. Like, how do you recreate bumping into someone in the hallway when you're remote? And how can we all just be a little more honest about what we don't know, and ask for help? So when it comes to technology or comes to finding ways to collaborate, I think just being open and honest about those challenges is the first step. And then I'm just going to say it one more time, because I know we have a lot of leaders listening in. If you're one of those leaders who's really struggling with the change and sort of embracing that, I would say run at that fire, tackle it head on, so that your team can truly see that you're trying, and know that there's space for them to give it a shot too.
I love what you're saying, and I think what I'm taking away is empathy, and also being vulnerable in front of your team. That's an okay thing, because now you move from the role of being the leader to the role of being a human being, saying, hey, I'm like you guys, I don't know how to deal with this. Here is what I've tried, I failed, I need your help, what do you think? And then now you bring your groups and your tribe together, and then now everybody's kind of thinking about a solution. So thank you for sharing. And I'm liking this. I will test the iPad whiteboarding function in Zoom. I think it's amazing, because also we have remote teams inside of Flawless. So I'll definitely test this out and try it. That's awesome. Now, a couple of final questions for you. What's the latest business book or podcast you have been watching, or you like to watch or read?
Yeah, so I'm going to be really transparent with you. I have recently discovered what's called Book of the Month Club. I will send you the link. So this is not business related, but one thing in COVID I have learned is it is so important to find some joy, find something that really disconnects you, And I have loved Book of the Month Club because, and I'm not like sponsored by them, like don't worry there. I love it because it's a subscription model that they choose 5 of the best. And so if you're like me, I get so overwhelmed. My reading list is like 2 years long. Instead, they pick it for me. And every month I get 5, I choose 1, I read that 1, and then I move on to the next month. It's been awesome. So if you need just like a way to keep your mind stimulated that isn't constantly drowning in your business, Book of the Month Club is what I recommend. Now, on the other side, I've read a lot of business books, everything from StoryBrand, Challenger Sale, you know, all through the different types of classic like business books we typically talk about in this space. One of my favorites is not so much a book, it's more of a methodology, and the company is called Best Self Co. And what I really like about them is they have a journal, first of all, as well as a methodology and framework that's very much modeled after agile project management, but it's applying it to balancing your business and your life. And so what I have particularly loved about this, I use this strategy in my own project management day to day, as well as my life management day to day. And then I also teach this to a lot of the partners and businesses that I've worked with, is this concept that no one reaches like the big goal overnight. It comes with work, it comes with setbacks. And so the way that you do that is you roadmap your journey to that big end goal. And so Best Self Co is one that I have leaned on for years now. And like I said, I've taught it, I have implemented it into my own personal trainings and workshops. And it's really been a pivotal piece of content that I always circle back to in my career and in my daily life.
That's amazing. I'm taking a lot of notes here. I'll check it out as soon as we're done with this interview. My final question to you is, who's the best superhero you like?
Oh, the best superhero. Oh, you asked me if I was going to say superpower. Okay, superhero.
Let's go for superpower. Let's go for superpower. Don't worry
No,
about it.
I like a challenge. Don't make it easier on me. My favorite superhero, I am like going through I'm such a nerd, guys. Don't worry about it. You know what? I'm gonna land on Batman. I always come back to Batman. I have a lot of favorites, but I'm a big Batman person, like fan. One,
Me too.
I'm a salesperson, so like making money was like my thing. And then 2, I just love all of the gadgets. I love that he doesn't actually have superpowers. I know that sounds really weird, so we're gonna stick with Batman today.
You know what? I love that because I love Batman because of that. Because it's possible somebody can be Batman. So
You
that's
could do
awesome.
that.
Yeah, you don't need superpowers. That's awesome. Very cool. Ashley, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate the time you gave us. We learned a lot of things. How as a leader you're actually doing cross-functional meetings. How are you preparing your one-on-one to understand the perspective of the individual that's coming to the meeting versus you actually running group collaboration functions and kind of trying to organize it. And sometimes you work with creative teams versus analytics teams. I know we spoke about the concept of scaling, but the core of scaling is bringing efficiency. So it's not just the number of new nodes you add, but it's more how deep this node is connected to your organization. We spoke about also all the stuff that you're doing with HubSpot right now, how our audience today can learn from them to actually build their channel organization. If they're manufacturing or SaaS based and they want to sell through partners or sell through franchise, that can be a model. We also spoke about basic things that you can think outside the box during COVID or in the new world, about collaboration with a tablet, whiteboard, and a Zoom meeting, Slack, channel, project management tools, and kind of the concept of vulnerability and empathy as a leader, that sometimes you can raise your hand and say, guys, this is new. I don't know how to deal with it. Let's figure it out together. That brings the tribe. And then I think you shared 2 things. Book of the Month Club, that's a good tool because actually it forces leader to get out of the traditional book reading and just have your brain, wander somewhere outside of the day-to-day, because that might bring different perspective, different reflection. And I think you close it with the Best Self Co. Never heard of them or the platform, so definitely I'll go in and kind of learn more from that. I just want to say thank you so much. I personally learned a lot from you today, and I hope the audience are taking a lot of notes. And of course, for people who didn't attend, we'll kind of send the recording out. Ashley, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak to you and learn something from you, and looking forward for future collaboration for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Bye for now.
Bye.